Great Wednesday. Welcome to the Healing America's Narratives podcast. I'm your host, King. I'm joined by my co-host, Reggie. How you doing today, Reggie?
Doing well, King. Can't complain. Having a little bit of an issue with my video. It's happened in the last couple of days. I haven't been able to resolve it, but I hope I won't be stalling and becoming a unsynchronized speaker as we talk today.
Well, what's your spiritual energy number today?
It's a 10. But, if I didn't work hard at it, it would probably be 6 or 7 with the internet issue. But I choose to be a 10. I'm showing up fully here, and I'm all.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a little freeze in your video feed, but we'll see if we can pursue through that. I'm a 10. I join you in that respect. Again, I choose no other reason to be nothing but a 10, especially when you go through your list of gratitude, which I'll go right into mine. I'm grateful for my life, my health, my ability to sit here, walk, talk, stand, breathe, and have a sound mind. Another 24 hours to pursue my purpose in life. Grateful for my challenges and my problems in my life, because through those, wisdom comes and growth comes. I'm grateful for the abundance of love and success that's happening to me in my life right now, and just grateful for the learning that I'm going through, things I'm discovering. It's exciting times for me, even though the world is outside is chaotic and threatening and uncertain. In my world, what I control, life is great, and I'm grateful for that. So finally grateful for the opportunity to be here on the show with you, even though we have a little technical challenges. Still grateful that we can just hop on a call and see each other and engage in a creation of energy that's going to be positive for individuals. So grateful to be a part of that process.
Yeah. So I'm going to do my best to move against my typical Italian American gesturing and moving around when I speak, and try to sit still so when I freeze. So I'm grateful as always for my indoor plumbing, a refrigerator with food in it, all of my basic needs being. I can turn on a faucet in the morning and get drinkable water, and I can make it hot if I want to take a shower. I have a toilet that flushes, and as I said, just things that those of us who live in a post-industrial world often take for granted. The majority of people don't have every day the things I just mentioned, and and I'm not a financially wealthy guy. I'm somebody who's probably in the lower half of the wealth measurements in the United States, and I still have all of that. So I'm just grateful for those basic being met, and then I get to do what I care about. I get to spend my days writing, talking to people, teaching, and not somebody else's curriculum, but those things that I choose to put my attention on. And I know, because I didn't always get to do that, what a blessing that is. So across the board, while I could complain about little things, I choose not to.
Well, it's great to hear. Like I said, great to be here with you, building with you, and you bring that energy. I'm bringing energy. I look forward to a great show. So with that being said, why don't you walk us into our topic for today?
Yeah, so we're going to launch into something today that, when I choose the topics and offer them to you, and when we, move ahead with them, what we're going to do today is something I try to avoid on a weekly basis because of what it focuses on. But I think it's important for a variety of reasons. Look at it, and I'll get specific in just a moment. For anybody that might be new we've been speaking for over 3 years now about the concept and the practice of healing America's narratives. And we're doing that in the context of taking a look at many issues, but specifically the national the country, those aspects of the country that tens of millions of Americans choose to ignore. And we've isolated 9 elements of that shadow. There might be more, but 9 we can prove. And so I just name those because that will help make sense of what we're about to discuss. So the 9 elements of what we deny in America are our ignorance, arrogance, fear, bigotry, violence, greed, excess, bullying, and untrustworthiness, and how they manifest, especially but not only through the group-centric masculine energy. So I'm not going to unpack all of that language because we've done that numerous times in the past. But that's the foundation for what we're about to embark on. So more specifically, folks listening to this know that this past weekend, Sunday was the, I believe, 13th anniversary of the slaughter of 6 educators and 20 first graders at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. And on this anniversary weekend, there was a mass shooting, basically an anti-Semitic terrorist attack in Australia. There was a mass shooting at Brown University in Rhode Island, and not a shooting, but a well-known and Rob Reiner and his wife Michele were murdered in their home allegedly by their son, their adult son. They were stabbed to death. And in response to that last piece, the murder allegedly by a son who had some issues growing up with drug addiction and homelessness, in response to that murder, that horrible event, the President of the United States had this to say, and I'm going to read this. This was his public statement on his social media page. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michele, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michele peace! Exclamation point. Now I choose to read that because that kind of a response to a horrific murder, a family tragedy, had nothing to do with Donald Trump or his policies, would be inappropriate from a middle schooler, from arguably the most powerful office in the world, or it used to be at any rate, the most powerful office in the world. And it's consistent with either the lack of human connectedness that Donald Trump has, or his decision, having the ability to connect with other human beings, to not connect in response to a horrific murder. That lack of empathy, that lack of any evidence of connectedness with other human beings, which makes it easy for him to direct the slaughter of um, people, mostly men, on boats from Venezuela in the Caribbean and the Pacific Ocean, to order the arrest, deportation, and physical abuse of undocumented immigrants, documented immigrants, and U.S. citizens who look like they might be immigrants, is a consistent throughout his presidency. And as I wrote in the 2022 book, Healing America's Narratives, and as you and I have consistently put forward, um, Donald Trump embodies all 9 traits of the worst of America, of what we deny about ourselves, our collective shadow. And again, he embodies ignorance, arrogance, fear, bigotry, violence, greed, excess, bullying, trustworthiness. Um, and tens of millions of Americans have seen fit to put him into the highest office in the land twice. So that's an indication of the malady, the underlying illness that afflicts this nation. I'll put a period there.
Well, again, we start off with a great topic, timely. My initial take on it is that I've got to know. I mean, I've always known about Rob Reiner my entire life. I remember when I was young seeing him on episodes of Archie Bunker and him being meathead. And then I've seen him again direct the movies and enjoy the movies he's directed. When Harry Met Sally was still is one of my favorite movies.
Mm.
I think it's the best of the rom coms, as they call it. I think that's the default one to measure it by. So he's been a great director. Again, activist, someone who leveraged his fame, his status, celebrity status, to promote causes that benefited others besides himself. So he's definitely a fully human in that context, as far as I'm concerned. And I mean, Trump's comments is, again, Trump being Trump. I'm at a stage where I'm surprised people are still surprised by Trump. And people constantly keep saying, I've heard this entire year at least about 10 times from folks. Every time you think the bar has already been set, he goes lower. So it's like they keep setting bars and not, surprised that he goes below that bar. And Trump's going to do anything he can to win. You talked about, the shadow elements of greed and, you know, um, that's what Trump's going to do because that's what he wants. He wants to create fear. He's going to be greedy and he wants to win. And if he can put people down and get away with it, which he's been able to do, uh, and that to me is what I'm surprised about, how people's reactions to Trump's actions and behaviors. They're surprised he's willing to be as evil and mean and callous as, and I don't know why they still hold some form of uh, hope that he can be presidential at certain times. He's shown he's not presidential on any level. He's a convicted felon, and we still hope that at certain times he'll be presidential. And it's like, at what point do people going to realize that's who we have, and that he should no longer surprise people because he does that because he knows that it would do that, and it gets conversations off of things that really matter. Everything's about, Trump will get proverbial releasing of the squirrels. There's a lot of squirrels he just throws out at times to distract people from what's going on. Everybody's like, oh, he's committing crimes, all but squirrel. And then we focus on the squirrel for a few days and we lose sight in the energy, the momentum of the crimes he's committing and where he's standing with that. So that's my initial take. It's definitely a shame that Rob Reiner had to be his legacy, the victim of what Trump's done. But again, what he's showing is that people now, I guess, some Republicans do have a level. They do have some form of so barrier of what they won't cross. and they've come out and said something about Trump, and that's the best. I bar so low that we're just happy that they are willing to give him a little critique. Where that's where we are in this country, where we want to just be happy with that. Uh, my final piece is this: it's I just really I'm just curious to see what is that proverbial line in the sand that America has that Trump can't cross, because he definitely straddles it. He definitely plays with it. He's definitely leaning all over it. And it's like, what is that line, and what is it going to take? Is it going to? It's obviously not going to be insults toward women. It's definitely not going to be the way he treats marginalized groups, because he's already shown what he's doing there, and he's continued to be more evil and diabolical in those areas. So, what is it going to take for folks to finally say, okay, that's it? He has to go, regardless of whatever value he may bring mega, he has to go. So that's what I'm kind of waiting to see. What is that line going to be?
Yeah, I appreciate all of that, and I wanted to mention one more without going down a Hollywood rabbit hole. One of the films he directed, which was written by Sorkin, was entitled "The American," and Michael Douglas starred as the president of the United States who had lost his wife.
I enjoyed that movie as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a great depiction towards the end of it when he speaks about when the president is making a speech. And I can't remember the details, so I won't go too far into it. But it pretty much is like this. It holds up the ideal of the presidency. Again, directed by Reiner, acted by Michael Douglas, and written by Aaron Sorkin. And it's what I do remember. It's like the antithesis of everything that Trump is. So that was probably, if he had ever seen the movie, he probably didn't understand it. But more to the point, I hope there is a line that has something to do with a basic sense of ethics or morality for these Republicans, especially Republicans in Congress and in his own White House. But Republican voters around the country. My concern is that there seems not to be a line. It's unwise to try to begin to list all of the things, all of the lines he's already crossed. So my sense is that if he does bump into any kind of a mutiny, and there's a little bit of pushback now, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, a handful of Republican Congress people did push back against what he said about the Reiner family. But there were others who defended his text. And this guy, Mark Wayne Mullen, I think his name is, he's a somewhere, and I forget if he's a senator or a congressman. I should know that. But he basically said it wasn't so bad, and that the last line of the text was, was respectful. So he's like, the last line was respectful. So what he said prior to that was okay. So I don't have a lot of faith in the goodness of people unless, and this has nothing to do with goodness, but it gets back to those developmental worldviews. We're less than a year away from the midterm elections. All indications, and I don't say this because I take it for granted, because anything could happen, but a lot of Republicans whose seats in Congress are up for grabs, who have supported Trump, are in trouble. And some of them have already begun distancing themselves a little bit from him. But there's no evidence that I can see. And again, this is my view. I could be wrong on this, but I don't see any evidence that they're doing it because there's a line that's been crossed. They're doing it because they want to make sure that they still can get elected. And they're caught in this really difficult place. And there's a me-centric place. It's about me. I want my reelection. That if they stay in support of Trump, they might get some of Musk's money, because Musk has decided to start funding Republicans again if they support Trump. But if there's another situation where the electorate, even in red states, has begun to look at people who support him and move away from those people. So those Republicans are caught in a really difficult place um, because of their self-servingness. They want to get reelected, and they don't know whether it's better. Here's the two ways they look at it. Is it better that I continue to support Trump so Elon Musk won't run somebody against me financially? Or is it better that I distance myself from Trump because more and more Americans seem to be upset by all the things he's done? And the choice that I don't hear anybody talking about is, which is the third choice, why don't I just be true to my own beliefs and my own authenticity and let the cards fall where they may? Why don't I just speak the truth, stand for what I believe for my constituents, whether I'm a senator or a House member, and have the courage to be myself? And I don't see many people on the right doing that. It's all about where can I get the best deal? What's the safest bet? And I understand they're in the political game, and that's the game that they play, but that's the game they've co-created as well. We're all complicit. We voted, but over the years, the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of the federal government and state and local governments are those that we've, in some cases, voted for. Some of the ne'er-do-wells and scoundrels have been appointed by the people we voted for. But I don't know. I don't think, and I don't think there's any line that he has to worry about crossing, because he's crossed so many already, just in terms of common decency, that I don't know that that's going to happen. I hope it does, but I don't see any evidence. I mean, even the deep bows and kudos we all paid to Adam Kitzinger and Liz Cheney when they agreed to be part of the January 6th committee to investigate what happened that day. And it did take some courage because they both were ostracized by their party. But they did what they should have done. In any kind of a moral, ethical world, that's what they should have done. And when we start, genuflecting in front of people simply because they're seeking the truth and showing integrity, you can see how far we've fallen. Where it was exceptional. 2 people, no senators, unless you count Mitt Romney, but 2 people in the Republican Party stepped forward after the insurrection and the attack on the Capitol. So many lines have been crossed. I don't know. I don't know that there is. I think the bar is pretty low for those people who still think Donald Trump is the right guy for the job. And I tend to be optimistic.
Yeah, I think you'd be a little more optimistic because I think that it comes down to Donald Trump has shown that he's willing to uphold the system of white supremacy. And I think that's what really matters in the day for people who still support and still want to act as though he's bringing any value to the world. He's upholds that system. At the end of the day, they may disagree with him. A lot of his rhetoric. They may disagree with the way he executes his his policies and things of that nature. His cruelness, but it's better than losing the country and losing that system structure in their mind. So I don't see folks changing. Again, unless they can find someone else who's want to come and be less charismatic as Trump is, and still able to have the base and make him pretty much uncancelable. I mean, because Trump, long as he has his base, he's uncancelable. You know, you can't cancel him. I mean, Trump, when he realized himself, he said in his first term when he was running for office, I can shoot someone in the middle of, was it
Fifth
Times
Avenue,
Square? What was it, Times Square or Manhattan?
Fifth Avenue in
Fifth
Manhattan.
Avenue, yeah. And when he realized that himself, and now we're seeing that fact that if he realized that's the bar, that's the line, I could actually shoot someone. So he knows I can go as far as I need to go. And as long as I every now and then throw the proverbial um, minority under the bus, black people, I'm gonna strip them of their history. So that'll make Mega feel good. I'm gonna continue to keep going after the brown people. I'm gonna continue to be disrespectful to the women. That'll make the white males who young white males who are searching for identity online and get into this whole manhood thing and putting women down. That'll feed them. That give them what they want, and he can just skate on by, And now, what surprises me is Democrats still, even with that divisive, evil, narcissistic, uh, convicted felon in office, Democrats still are struggling to win seats, and it's like that part to me is the alarming part. I mean, as as everybody sees that Trump is not good for America, he's not good for the world. That's clear. I don't think too many rational, critical thinking people would disagree with that, other than his base, who again I just talked about. But yet and still, we cannot get his party out of office. It should be easy. It should be if you go to vote, you're voting Republican. I mean, you're voting Democrat across most of the lines. Why would somebody vote for Lindsey Graham? I would love for someone to come and explain to me why they would actually cast their vote for Lindsey Graham. Like, what is he actually doing for them as a constituent to say he's earning my vote? Other than, like, again, most Republicans, they've shown they can be disruptive, but they cannot govern. Every time you give them an opportunity to govern, they show they have no skills, no strategies, no plans to govern. But they can be disruptive. They can block things. They can stop things from happening, and give money to their uh, who based on a lobbyist that's in their ear. They make sure they get their benefit, but to their constituent, to the people who are voting to put them in office, and not give them anything. And those people wouldn't accept that just as long as they don't get Democrats in office because of the fear that's created. But one of the things I think gets lost in this whole uh, discussion about Rob Reiner, because our country is so politicized and marginalized, is the fact that he comes from three generations, or his son does, three generations of Hollywood celebrity, of wealth, of privilege, of money, and he still killed his parents. And no one's discussing that part. Like, what drove him to do that? When you figure your uncle, I mean, your grandfather is Carl Reiner, who's brilliant in Hollywood, then your father and his track record and so that's all you've ever known. That's all his family's ever known is success, celebrity status, privilege. And you can still like have in your heart and your mind that killing your parents is a solution to any problem. Right? That's a solution you have to take, and that's not even been discussed. And why that is, why does America create that type of environment where even if you have money, it doesn't exempt you from mental health and the evilness of allowing what's been programmed from society into people, whatever they may be. It's like, again, at the end of the day, what I'm going with this is that if you don't have a plan that you are currently intentionally growing your mind, feeding your mind information, a plan for your life, a plan for your family that can make sure that they benefit and the future is better than the current, uh, then you leave yourself open to be programmed by them. There is no middle ground. Either you work in your plan or you work in someone else's plan. And you work in someone else's plan mean by being passive meaning you just allowing yourself to be a consumer. You just receive information. You buying the technology. You allow the phone to tell you what's important, what notifications should come on your phone. You let net tell you uh, what should get your attention, what you should put your attention on. You let the algorithm tell you what videos to watch on social media. If you're allowing that to happen, then you doing something that is totally outside of human character is always going to end up being the behaviors that's created as a result of people who are being programmed that way. Because that's what silent. I mean, that's what you see every day. You watch all the programs that come on streaming services, and I'm guilty of it as too. But I'm becoming more aware of it. Is how many shows now are true crime shows that you can watch on different streaming, and all streaming platforms have it. They have at least 20 shows about murder, with murder and death in the title, and they all are shows that are reality shows. I mean, in other words, they're shows that are based on reality, real life scenarios, and it's death, murder, fear thy neighbor, accidents, traffic accidents, um, murder in the bio, murder in New York City, murder in California, serial killers. And so that's constantly being fed to people as much as possible every day. And I don't see why people are not surprised that what we see manifest is people killing their parents or people just being in a murderous mindset because we have gotten to the point where we're conditioned to see each other as objects and not human beings.
Yeah, there's there's a lot going on there. Whew. Um, but that last piece you said, I mean, I'm just going to pick up on that. I, w- I was going to say something about the, like the Lindsey Graham comment and who would vote for him, and the whole system, because the system is broken and it's almost impossible to amend the Constitution, which and needs to be amended, and corporations are people, and spending millions of dollars to get a political candidate who will do what you want him to do for your company or your industry is called free speech, according to the First Amendment. I mean, so there have been judicial decisions passed down that have really corrupted the system and have been in place for a long time now. Um, so, and then those same people with money fund um, attack ads that say things that are untrue about the candidate, and both Democrats and Republicans do that. Um, so it's a completely broken system, and we have people, and this is what you often say in our conversations. We have people who have not yet learned how to, or have chosen not to apply uh, critical thinking. So if they see one of the most successful strategies in the 2024 presidential election was the strategy that created the fear of these huge transsexual men playing sports against these little middle school girls and accusing Kamala Harris of wanting that to happen. It was completely fictionalized. And it was visual, it was powerful if you didn't have a brain, especially. And it scared a lot of people. So the system and it is broken. But back to the last thing you said. Um, for the most part, the modern world that you and I have grown up in, post World War II world, and as we can go down a rabbit hole just speaking about that, but for the most part, because of what happened prior to World War II with the Industrial Revolution, beginning in the 1800s in Europe and then the United States, and the use of atomic weapons against Japan by the United States, which basically ended World War II, and then about 80 years of no more superpower wars, because they realized that if anybody uses those things again, everybody's going to die. There's been a relative time of prosperity and wealth in many countries, especially democratic countries, but not only democratic countries, since World War II ended. Um, and in many ways, that's a good thing. More people got access to clean drinking water, to medicine, to the benefits of science, to air conditioning and heat and some luxuries and things like that. More and more people got access to those things. But what that kind of success and prosperity also taught us, unless we were really paying attention, um, was a sense of what I would call a mistaken identity of who we really are. In modernity and post-modernity in the United States, we are basically taught that we're the beings who have dominion over the planet. And if we're in the US, we're part of the most powerful system in the world, a democratic capitalist system. We're taught that capitalism makes democracy possible. And we're taught that our responsibility is to learn how to become part of the marketplace, to make money, to get things, maybe raise a family, get married and raise a family, and live happily ever after. So it's a material-based view of identity. Have dominion over the planet, make money, get things, be successful. And as far as I can tell, that's not who we are, right? If we look back in terms of what we know, that science has given us, and that the mystical traditions of every major religion have also given us in different language, we're all manifestations of something that happened in the vicinity of 36 billion years ago. And we're made of the same stuff that made oceans, trees, giraffes, and mountains. And we've evolved into this human form, and we've learned how to impact the environment, typically for our own good and at the expense of the environment itself. But this money-making, environment-hurting, polluting, fighting war species is in fact a mistaken identity. It's a very narrow, small view of humanity and of creation and the universe itself. And it's dictated by those who have done best in this capitalist system. And even capitalism could be done, basically, I'm not criticizing capitalism per se, although I have some critiques of it. Capitalism could be done in a different way, where there was still this freedom to create and make money, but not at the expense of everyone else, and not creating these massive wealth inequalities. So that's the mistaken identity. Many of us think that, we especially with social media now, we see all this wealth. We see someone like Donald Trump in the White House and putting all gold things in the Oval Office. We see Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and we see they have their own rocket ships and yachts. And we seem to think we want to be like them. And I'm saying the collective generic we here. I don't want to be like that. I mean, I wouldn't mind having, dollars in my bank account, but having hundreds of billions is, that's not a draw for me in any way, shape, or form. But we have this mistaken identity. And virtually everybody in Congress, not everybody, but virtually everybody in Congress lives in that mistaken identity. Donald Trump definitely does. All the people that he brought on definitely do. And they live in this us versus them world when we're all part of the same species and we're all part of this greater life force that we can call the planet, the living, breathing planet, that we're destroying because of our mistaken identity. The only way you get to that is if your parents gave you that when you were young, or if you became dissatisfied with your life as you grew through adolescence, young adulthood, and into adulthood, and you began to explore on your own other possibilities, as I know you have, and as I have. but the people with power are stuck in that sense of mistaken identity, and they like power. They wield power in destructive ways, and they scare other people into following them. Um, that's you know, and I could say more about that, but I'm not going to stop there. That's what we're looking at from the uniquely American experience that we have lived. Um, so beginning to resolve that, beginning to get enough people to see it and understand it, is an immense task. Um, and I know I don't have the answer for it, other than education and good people providing examples of what that looks like.
Well, again, you go through history, which you are a history uh, scholar. You know, you write, you study, you focus on history. You see that this is human society. I mean, this has been. I mean, think about, like, I'm a history buff, as they call it. I love to study history. And I was just watching the other day the Salem witch trials. Not even the Salem, it was actually witch trials through Europe as well. And how, again, hysteria just got created. You accuse someone of being a witch, then they torture them enough to the point where they start identifying other people who are witches, even though there is no proof, other than the person might be doing some holistic type of gardening and was in the herbs and those kind of natural heals. And again, since it was against the church or against the system, then that's the issue. So they created hysteria and just killed. Said over 70,000, mostly women, were killed through these trials, not just in Salem. Again, the witch trials around the world. And when you look at that and you understand that the collective is always going to be the issue.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is if the collective can be taught to be ignorant and stupid. When I say stupid, well, again, what I mean, not intelligence wise, but acting against their own best interests and the best interests of others. When you do actions in that context, don't benefit you or don't benefit the other. So morally stupid is what I'm going with this. And you have no issue with that. That's the collective's mindset. And now social media just reinforces that in the indoctrination through the training. You coined the term cultural givens. And the more research I've done and I continue to do is learning that, when I first got into studying personal growth and I got exposed to Napoleon Hill, he
Mm.
talked about the importance of programming your mind, programming your subconscious. And I read that and I've read it for years. And I always understood that until very recently. I understood that as just being like the subconscious, your dream world, things of that nature. That's how I interpret it to be programming that. You have better dreams and better thoughts. I didn't realize now that what you really need to program is that voice in your head that Alan Watts talks about that you think is you. That's what you need to program. And it goes back to we talked about with identity. Who you think is you, that voice that tells you certain things in your head, that's not you. You're the observer of that voice. So you have to learn that. And you have to, your cultural givers is programmed. So when you listen to that voice, it's been through centuries, I mean, years of what your parents have told you, what your community has told you, what the media has told you, your schools, that's there. And if you don't believe that voice is not you, try to meditate and say, I'm going to just clear my thoughts and just watch what thoughts pop in your head. And you realize that's not you because you can't think those thoughts. You can't say what's coming next. It just pops in your, where did I leave the car keys? Did I get lunch yet? You don't want to think about lunch. You're trying to meditate, but that thought popped in your head. So that shows that's not you. But my point I'm making is that you don't control that voice. And social media and the systems that are designed because of capitalism to control those voices. I mean, for us to even accept the fact that one man can be anywhere near a trillionaire, but we have so much abject poverty around the world, we're going to let this one person have $1 trillion. Elon has not done anything that's remarkably worth him having $1 billion. If we look at it from a context of truly looking at his skill, his competence, and things that he's done. But yet and still, most people lift him up as some Einstein uh, of business when he brought most of the companies that he's making money from. He didn't create any of those. Tesla didn't create, you know, didn't create PayPal, didn't create any of these companies. And we saw when he had his money, what he did with Doge. We saw that. So it's like he fails forward. He continued to fail and continue to keep making more money. He lost all this money, and Tesla still wants to reward him with even a larger pay package. So it's like, how do we even as society allow that to happen? Same thing with Jeff Bezos. Amazon's a great company from a consumer standpoint. It's a horrible company to work for, right? And we hadn't still, so we're showing the model. We're saying these are people we're going to award. These are people we're going to lift up. These are people we're going to admire, and not understand that that's a problem that continues to um, teach our kids that this is the way to be successful. Like I remember years ago, I used to get these quotes that people would post, and it's called millionaire quotes, millionaire mindset. And one of the quotes said, you know, work so hard that um, to get your goal. And it's like there's not a millionaire that would say they actually worked hard to become. I mean, I'm a billionaire that actually say they worked 10 times as harder as a millionaire to get their money. They can't say that. They're not worth 10 times the worth of other people as far as the value they bring into the marketplace. Yet still, capitalism allows that to be how they're rewarded. It continues to strip the common person of you go work for a job where you sign up to give 40 hours of your time minimum for an hourly rate, and this hourly rate at best you can get 2 to 3% increases, and I may give you weekends off sometimes, and then you get 6 vacation and sick leave, and that's the best you can hope for. And that becomes now your plan to work that until you retire. And then we got corporations and folks who want to take that from you, as take your retirement from you. And we want to bicker about race. We want to bicker about transgender. We want to bicker about immigrants, when those are the issues that we should be focused on. And that's where I'm going with that. My final piece on this is that when what I've learned is that it's impossible to be creative and destructive in the same mindset. Either one or the other. You're either having creative thoughts or you're having destructive thoughts. And if you're not programming your mind, then more likely you're having destructive thoughts. And the first destructive thoughts you're going to have are destructive thoughts towards you: alcoholism, poor diet, stress, um, anxiety, all these things that's not good for you. And then eventually you're going to have an outlet. And that's when people snap and they take all their energy they've been bottling it up and building inside, and they take it out on someone else. And they either be a mass murderers or they could be a simple murder. I mean, to have someone go up and shoot a synagogue in Australia just because people who happen to be the Jewish faith, and you just go and you're just going to shoot those people randomly. That's insane. And see, Brown University shooting. See, we can't escape the violence that's created because we create the environment of violence. And then we're surprised that violence happens in that. It's like literally putting rats in a maze and putting one little piece of food and then being surprised how the rats react and fight over their food if we keep them in controlled sections. So all that to say is that, again, we know Trump, which is a microcosm of how people, Trump is a microcosm of the root of white supremacy. He uses it to his full advantage. We see that. Again, what's the proverbial line? I come back to that now at the 49th minute. What's the proverbial line? I know I say a lot there, but I just want to close with the fact is that my question for you would be, what do you see yourself? Is there anything that Trump can do that would trigger a different set of reactions from you, not violent, but I'm just saying a different set of reactions you haven't done thus far? Is there, in other words, is there something else that you were saying that if he crosses this line, then either I'm going to run for office or I'm going to do something else, or you already have your established, no matter what he does, you know how you're going to move forward from this point forward?
So there's nothing you could do um, nowadays that would surprise me or lead me to have a harsher view of him. I kind of felt I knew who he was 40 years ago, more than that. I mean, because again, my history growing up in New York, he's 8 years older, learning about him in the late 70s, early 80s. And now I've seen what he would actually do with all this power. So no, I not running for office is more about me than anything he might do because I have a sense of what that means. And I don't have the energy at this point in my life to begin that. If I had already been in it, I might stay in, but um, I'm going to keep writing and teaching and telling the truth. But he can't surprise me. In other words, I used the Truth Social post that he put up after the murder of Rob and Michele Reiner, um, which I don't like to talk a lot about Trump's most recent idiotic posts because there's just too many of them. It's every day, every hour almost. But I don't think there's anything he could do that would surprise me. If he wouldn't kill somebody himself because he gets other people to do his dirty work, whether it's Michael Cohen or Pete Hegseth or Stephen Miller or whomever, Christy Nome. But I don't think there is anything that would change, make me feel even more against him. I'm there. I don't see any redeeming qualities that he has. And even if he did something good tomorrow, I might be surprised by that, but I would look at it as the machine broke. There was a power surge, and the machine did something it wouldn't normally do. But I'm sure it would go back to normal. So I don't know if I really question you asked, but
Well, I don't think I asked my question fully the right way. What my question was so much about, I gave you one example as far as running for office. What I was going with is there something on the fence that you are kind of wanting to do, whether it's endorse another candidate, become more politically active, write another book, that if we continue to go off the end to a democracy, that would trigger you to start doing that right now? In other words, that becomes a priority because of this action. Now that you shift your priorities to whatever this may be. That's what I was trying. That's a question I was really trying to ask.
Yeah, so I don't think there is. Right now, I'm doing things every day that I think are important to oppose what's happening in this country. My biggest issue is getting my voice out there because it's not really out there. I mean, you and I talk. I do some things with my teaching locally at UConn, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, but I don't have a huge platform or following, and. But I don't think that I would, that I don't know what the other step would be. I'm doing all the steps that I know how to do right now. And yeah. So I'll put a period there.
Well, my reason for asking that is that's kind of where I was in that situation where I had to make that pivot. And the pivot of finally being fed up about what I see and then saying what I've been putting back on the back burner needs to be now a priority. And that is, Stephen R. Covey talked about finding your voice in his book, The Eighth Habit. Yeah. Finding your voice. And I interpreted my voice now finally to be around the fully human movement and really aligning myself with others. So I've made that more of my priority of looking to connect and build with people who are critical thinkers and growth minded and self aware. And the attributes I came up with six qualities of being fully human, and your identity being number one. Like if you still identify by your race or your religion, and that's how you see the world and you move through the world, I can't build with people, regardless of whatever race it may be. It was, because you're gonna look at the world through the wrong lens. And right now, to put the energy and effort to try to convince you that everybody is being victimized right now, it's not. Yeah, you can argue and say one race may be victimized more than another race, and you can make that debate. But even that energy is a waste from being creative. And what I've learned is that when you get rid of the bias and hatred toward other people and the exhaustion you feel from defending your race or positioning uh, yourself to not be offended by people who want to attack the collective group of your race, that creative energy that you get back gives you so much more clarity, and you can get so much more done when you're not living in that kind of mindset. And that's the mindset I say that's destructive. And I talk to people who, like, people ask me how you doing. I'm doing great, and I don't mean it. I'm not saying it just because it feels good to say. I'm really feeling bad, but I'm saying great by default, hoping that I could be great. I'm feeling great because mentally I've allowed myself to come to peace with who I am, what my purpose is, and what I put in my mind. Is my life perfect? No, not any means it's not perfect. There are still people who I owe money to that I'm committed to paying back, that I'm focused on paying back. And I realize that the best way I can pay people back is to be in a creative mindset. That's where I'm going with this. And I can't pay people back if I'm feeling like a victim and I'm feeling uh, the arbitrage of my race and the hatred and seeing the world as a black man who's being stripped of his little victories that we have won along the way. Arguing whether or not Harriet Tubman face should be on a coin or the $20 bill and being upset that it's not. It's like once you understand the system, I don't expect it to be. And Harriet Tubman didn't do what she did to have her face on that. So that's not something she wanted. She took action, and that's where I'm going with this. It's like for me, I'm at a stage where you have to take action, and you've taken action. So I'm not saying that because you haven't. You've written a book, you've written your Substack articles, you've constantly put yourself in a position to leverage your intellect, your critical thinking to help spread awareness to others. I just wish more people would begin to put themselves in that situation and they're not connect with the ones who are and build tribes with those.
Yeah. There's a bunch of things there. I know we're close to the top of the hour that I want to, primarily agree with, but just to speak to. And I think that idea of, that fully human identity, which is, underlies, as you know, a lot of what I've been doing for probably the last decade. I wouldn't say the language I like to use when somebody identifies with their ethnicity or their gender or their sexual orientation or their race or their religion, whatever it happens to be. I don't like to say that. I would never say somebody is wrong. I would just try to say that it's partial. So, if somebody, identifies with one of those categories, great. As long as that's not all they identify with. And you gave great examples of that. If you're going to get upset over this, and this because of race or gender, then that's a really partial identity. And this is perfect what you said. That's taking your energy. That all of your energy is kind of contracted and stuck in that. And when you can let that go and say, okay, I am a gay Latino man, but that's not all I am. And I just picked out a couple of examples. I don't know why I picked that. I didn't want to use myself. Energy gets freed up, and that's what you just spoke to, I think, really beautifully. Is if we're projecting, or we're stuck this really identity, right? Energetically, we remain contracted, And as we begin to let go and see that, yeah, in fact, every human being on the planet is our brother or sister. There's this expansiveness and this energy that we then get. It doesn't mean that we agree with each of them. All of them are doing good things because they're not. But we realize, to use the old cliche there, but for the grace of God, go I, because any one of us can fall flat on our face and do something stupid at any given moment. I've heard that's true. I've actually never done anything myself.
And you don't have a plan or purpose, and I believe, yeah, you program for someone else, you definitely would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. And as we wrap up our show and get ready to move on our last segment, I just want to make one last clarification. When I alluded to the fact that I believe people who choose to identify by their race is wrong, not wrong from a moral context, wrong because you are denying yourself your creative, true self. Yourself is put here on this earth to be creative, to create value. And if you caught up in the identity and you choose to identify by your race, which is a false construct, that's what I mean by that. So again, I'm not saying morally you're wrong and I'm right as a moral decision. I'm saying the fact that race is not even a real construct. So you're accepting the fact that I identify. It's like saying my favorite football team is Dallas Cowboys, so I'm a cowboy. And you begin to identify with that and move in those behaviors. I'm saying you're wrong because you're wasting your energy on it, not wrong because you're making moral decisions. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yep.
And as we now shift into our last section of our show, which is to give flowers to people who we feel who are fully human or have been fully human and exhibiting these behaviors, I think it's important that people understand that, again, what we're talking about is not some pie in the sky, impossible goals. People have lived this way. People are currently living this way. And that's why our path is to live this way as well. So in this Give 'em Flowers segment, I want to give, and I'm going to continue to keep doing this because these are the people who I find to be most fully human right now and going against the collective. And that's what I admire. And what I mean by that, again, is many Jewish groups and people around the world who are not aligning themselves with the state of Israel as far as what they're doing. And I don't think they get enough attention and enough recognition for what they do and putting their lives on the line, putting their careers on the line, and their social status on the line to fight for something that does not benefit them, because it can easily benefit them to not give their voice out. So this is what I admire and respect about them. And Jewish groups such as the Jewish Voice for Peace, and groups called If Not Now, and the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network. These organizations, and they focus on creating campaigns on Palestinian rights and in U.S. support for Israel military policies. So those are folks, again, I want to continue to lift up each week because it'd be so much easier for them to keep their voices quiet, to not say anything, and to continue to benefit from what Israel is doing, but they choose to be fully human instead.
Yeah, beautiful. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm going to go with, but I just looked up to make sure I knew his name. The guy's been in my mind for a while. So I'm going to go with Ahmed El Ahmed, 43-year-old Syrian-born Australian citizen who's a Muslim, who, without a gun, sneaked up behind one of the shooters in Bondi Beach in Australia over the weekend and grabbed the shooter by the throat, took his rifle away. I don't know if it was a rifle or a shotgun, probably a rifle. Aimed it at him, but didn't shoot him. And as the shooter, walked away to go back up on the bridge, and eventually was shot himself, but he's okay. He did the thing which just defies what I refer to as the idiotic American logic, first manifested by, I think, Charlton Heston. when he was the leader of the National Rifle Association, and then by Wayne LaPierre, that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, which was proven false in Uvalde in Texas, when the good guys with the guns stood around for an hour, didn't go into the school, and all the kids got killed. They had their jackets and their helmets and their strategies and everything else. They didn't go in until it was too late. And at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in Parkland, Florida, where the security guard didn't go in until it was too late. And this guy didn't have a gun. He snuck up behind him when he turned his back as he was shooting. Ahmed El Ahmed, a Muslim man born in Syria, living in Australia, stopped one of the shooters. And I mean, there's a guy who is manifesting what you and I have been talking about. Were Islamist fundamentalists. We now know that. They were Muslim. He was Muslim. So it just puts to rest this identity thing. Well, I got to check out to see if that shooter is a Catholic and an Italian American before I stop him. Nah, he's shooting innocent people. I'm going to go in and stop him. So he did the thing in real life, in real time, that Nicole Hockley, who was one of the mothers of one of the first graders killed at Sandy Hook, referred to as the superhero dreams. I can't imagine what it was like for her to have these superhero dreams. But when something like that happens, and many of us probably do this, what would I have done if I were there? And how would I have sneaked up on the shooter and stopped the shooting? And I'm guessing every parent or every survivor who has lost a family member or friend has those moments. Like, what would I have done if I could have seen? How could I have stopped this? And this guy, Ahmed El Ahmed, did it without a gun. And God bless him, because, I looked at what he did, and I don't know if I could have done what he did and this bad guy was on the ground, I don't know if I could have stopped myself from shooting him. Yeah. But he didn't shoot him, which in the long run hurt him because he ended up getting shot by the other one, I think. But that was a fully human move. This is a bad thing happening. I'm going to do my best to stop it. And the perfect, global lesson is it was Jews being targeted by two, Islamist terrorists, and it was stopped by a Muslim. If the world could only learn the underlying meaning there, that they were all in this together, regardless of the specific religion or race or gender, we'd be a lot better off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I concur completely. And as we wrap up our show, again, this has been the Healing America's Narratives podcast. We do it each Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until next week, let's all focus on becoming more fully human. Thank you.